Hey, it's Christy, and I'm asked all the time, how do I save for down payment and closing costs? Because for me, that's the one thing that's standing in my way. I've got everything else. Well, I've got a couple of ideas. Thanks so much for being here with me for another video. I've got some suggestions on how to come up with your down payment and your closing costs. So if you have not owned a home in the last 3 years, or ever, you are a first-time home buyer, which means you qualify for a first-time home buyer loan. In the conventional world, that means as little as 3% down, and then in the FHA world, that means as little as 3.5% down. So closing costs tend to be around 3% of your purchase price. So all in, your goal is to get about 6.5% saved for your down payment and your closing costs, which is your cash to close. So how do we get there? Well, first things first, you should be following a tracking spender, also known as a budget. Studies have shown that households that follow a budget spend about 14% less than those who do not. There's also some things that will really stand out to you where you're like, oh my gosh, I can change these things, right? I can cut back my cable. I just recently changed my insurance for my auto. It was a huge, significant cost year over year of an increase if I stayed with that same company. So I wound up going to a different company. Saves me a ton of money, over $60 a month, which if you look at it on an annual basis is quite a bit of money. You can also shop for other things in your life, like your cell phone bill. I know people are paying $90 a month for the same service that I'm paying, $40 a month. So check out different options there. And you don't always have to have the newest, the greatest, the most recent number of something, right? So just because the new such and such phone came out doesn't mean you need to go and drop $1,300 on it. If your phone is perfectly fine the way it is, maybe just know you've got a bigger goal and you can put that $1,000 or $1,300 towards the goal of buying your home. There are some things that we really treat ourselves with that we can cut back a little bit. For instance, I know a lot of people who go out to eat or they get food delivered to their home several times a week. If you plan for your meals, go grocery shopping on a full tummy, and actually go with a menu of meals that you're going to have planned throughout the week, you can save yourself a ton of money. I love making a bigger dinner than what's required, so that way I can have the leftovers for lunch, instead of going out to a restaurant where I'm guaranteed to drop somewhere between $10 and $20 depending on who I go with and where we go. You might also have a tax refund coming. So if you are eligible for a tax refund, consider putting that aside into a very sacred and untouchable savings account that's called My Home Buying Fund. And don't touch it. Let it grow there. See if you can put it in an account that has a little bit of interest. So, over the months and the years that you're saving towards this, you can get a little bit of interest out of it as well. I see a lot of people in the lines of Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts first thing in the morning, and those drinks are anywhere from $3 to $8 or $9. And if you do that daily, start adding up the cost of what is keeping you from your goal. That could be a lot of money by the end of the month. Maybe, just maybe for a little while, you sacrifice and you drink the office coffee if you go into an office for work, or you make it at home. If you're able to, consider renting out a room where you currently live now. I know when I bought my first home, I rented out a room to a friend. I thought it was only going to be a couple months, and she wound up living with me for over 2 years. She paid half my housing costs, and because of that, I was able to pay off my student loans, I was able to pay off my car, and I was able to have money saved up for my next home. So perhaps that's something you can do where you're at. Consider what you might be able to rent out to somebody. I know a friend of mine walks dogs for people in her neighborhood. So she works from home and she wants to get out of her home in the middle of the day, and some people aren't able to make it home in the middle of the day on their lunch break. So she walks dogs for her neighbors at lunchtime and at the end of the day, and she makes a ton of money as a side hustle doing this, and it's helping her get to her bigger goals. So what kind of side hustle might you be able to take on where you can make a couple extra bucks here and there and put it aside into that very secret savings account? If you share with your friends and family what you're up to, your very big goal of getting to the 6.5% savings for your down payment and your closing costs, they're going to want to help support your efforts as well. So they might let you off the hook from expensive gifts at Christmas time or birthday. Maybe they'll allow an experience or time shared together to be what the focus is rather than the cost of a gift. So I know sometimes when you share that with some people, they're like, you know what, I don't want anything from you. I want to help you on your journey. And then that can help keep some money in your pocket as well. So back to that spending tracker, if you'll take just a little bit of time and be real with yourself on those numbers, you're going to see some other opportunities of where you can cut some money from. And we've got to be real with ourselves because it really is going to require a change in behavior and a change in actions. But keep in mind, this is not forever. It's just temporary. I know when I moved to the area that I live at now, and I had a goal of buying my home, I knew I was going to have to hustle pretty hard for it. I was working 3 jobs at that time, and all of my money was going into savings. I carpooled when I could. I rented out stuff when I could. I sold stuff where I could. And so maybe even just look in your closet. In the corner of my eye here, I see my closet, and there's so many things in there that I just keep moving every time I move homes, but I could really sell some of these things for a couple of bucks and start adding it towards my bigger goal. So what's in your life that isn't really bringing you the same kind of joy any longer that you could sell for a couple of dollars? Maybe it's an older TV that just sits in a guest bedroom that hasn't been turned on in a year. Maybe it's some kind of collection that you have that isn't bringing you the same kind of joy that it had in the past. Or maybe there's just something sitting in your garage, like an old boat or a jet ski or a motorcycle or something that you're like, you know what, I just don't even use this anymore. Not only will you make money off of selling it, it frees up some space, which is exciting, but sometimes those things you pay for, like an insurance policy or something like that, that you can free up as well. And lastly, there are some luxuries that we have been treating ourselves with, which is not a bad thing to have, but maybe you can just temporarily postpone it for now. Again, make sure your mind knows you're not ridding yourself of it forever, but just a temporary postponal on that luxury item. So maybe you get your nails done, or you get a massage, or pedicure, or something along those lines. Maybe that's something you can just kind of do at home for yourself, or just say, you know what, in the next 3 months, I'm going to just hold off on having that done, and I'm going to put the money for it over here. It's funny, I used to smoke cigarettes. I know, it's terrible. And I remember when cigarettes went above $2 a pack, I'm like, that's it, I'm quitting. It wasn't because of my health, and it almost wasn't because of vanity purposes. It was because I'm so frugal. I didn't want to spend that money anymore. But instead of just not spending it, I actually physically put that money aside every single week into a savings account. Because you know what happens when you cut money but you don't have it assigned to someplace? That's right, it just goes. It's a fleeting thought. It's like it wasn't even there, right? You're like, where did that money go to? So you have to assign it. And that's why if you're able to name your savings account, please do that. And I called it sacred. Keep it protected. It's not for a rainy day fund. It's for a really big dream fund. And I believe you can do this. Thanks so much for watching. And if you have any great ideas you'd love to share with the viewers, please put them in the comments, because I've only touched on a couple of things here. And I know that there's so many other amazing ways that we can kind of play tricks on our mind, and we can shave off a little bit here and a little bit there. So share it with your friends, will you? Thanks so much for watching.